Burnout. The leading cause of burnout is an influx of overwhelming emotion. We're going to talk about that today. Welcome to the Help for Leaders podcast. I'm Stacey Harris. Before we dive into today's episode, click here to subscribe, hit that thumbs up, ring that bell so you're notified each week when we post new episodes. Today, we're talking about self-regulation. It's a huge aspect of EQ that's going to impact whether we're burning out or not. And so I want to talk about this second piece of emotional intelligence. We're in the middle of a series on EQ. Last week's episode was all about self-awareness. If you haven't listened, I encourage you to go take a listen to that episode. That's the foundation. That's the first layer, if you will, of emotional intelligence. So what is emotional intelligence? It is all about understanding our emotions, understanding how our emotions are impacting our decision making, how ultimately emotions are either enabling us or inhibiting us in our performance and our ability to collaborate with other people. So self-regulation is huge, honestly. And if you look at statistics, it's the lowest aspect. When we take the assessment as Americans, we score the lowest in self-regulation. And self-regulation is that ability to actually recognize disruptive emotions and be able to check on those impulses and not react, rather respond out of a place of logic rather than that place of emotion. And so I really want to dive deep into self-regulation and what that looks like in the workplace, because it is impacting us. It's impacting our teams. It's the leading cause to burnout when we have this influx of emotional response, especially negative emotions. And so let's talk about it. Self-regulation is a skill that we use day to day. It helps us manage our emotions, understand our emotions, be able to regulate those emotions. And it really is something that is a skill that we can learn. So if you're an individual who operates in a high level of self-regulation, you're able to pause. You're able to feel all the feelings, because remember, we're human. We're going to feel a response. We're all triggered in some kind of way. And those can be both positive and negative triggers that release chemicals in our brain that we feel before we think. And so how we respond once that happens in us is what self-regulation is all about. And so I know we've all said things that we've regretted later. That's because we don't have a lot of regulation to be able to really pause and think before we open our mouths. And so self-regulation helps us with that. But what does it look like in the workplace when you're really low in self-awareness? Self-regulation is crucial. It's crucial on our teams. It's going to help us every day interact, because conflict is normal. I've done whole episodes on healthy, productive conflict, and it's a normal part of our everyday interactions with our teams. And so how we handle that conflict really does kind of hinge on our ability to regulate those emotions, because in conflict, emotions are kind of running rampant. And if we don't know how to really engage with those emotions before we make a decision, we don't want to just totally deny emotions at all. We want to actually use that emotional response. Remember, it's a trigger. It's telling us, it's an indicator that something is going on. It's a data point. Maybe I'm afraid. Maybe I'm feeling fearful. Maybe I'm sad. Maybe I'm just really mad. And I need to know why I'm feeling that. That's what self-awareness is. And then now I need to know how to regulate that emotion so it's not disrupting my entire team. And so in our day-to-day, what that can look like is when we are in a conflict situation, when we're having some conflict, being able to pause, to be able to stay curious, to be able to listen to others on the team, to be able to hear what they're having to say, that can help you really formulate a response that's not going to be crushing to them, to your team's performance, to their ability to work together. We have a lot of power and a lot of choice, honestly, that we're given every single day in our response. So what does self-regulation look like in the workplace when it's low? First of all, fear is a very real emotion. And when we are feeling negative emotions, it can actually inhibit us in engaging in work. It can hold us back. It can actually be something that really does hold us back from stepping into trying new things, from collaborating on teams, we just really tend to keep our mouths shut. And so when we aren't able to articulate what we're feeling, we can shut down. And there's lack of engagement, there's lack of excitement, we feel just kind of blah, we show up, we do the minimum. That is what one of the effects of low self-regulation can look like, because we allow fear to dominate, and so we shut down. Or we can do just the opposite. When we have anger or those kind of emotions, we can actually react and speak up and speak out when it's not helpful, when it's not productive, and say things that we would later regret. And so it can kind of go one direction or the other. As far as self-regulation, we can either really just kind of go all out with a lot of emotion and shut other people down, or we can shut ourselves down and not react in a healthy way or respond in a healthy way with our teams. Another way low self-regulation can happen on our teams is we can actually be skipped over for advancement. Some of us may be so unaware of our emotions, and we're constantly talking a big game, but then our actions and our skill set don't match it. We lack credibility with our team members, and they may not listen to you when you're talking this big talk because you're just unaware of those emotions, and then you can't regulate them. Or it can have the complete opposite, in that we are so aware of our limitations, and we're constantly talking about those in a way that are pushing ourselves down and not really building us up. It's like, oh, I can't do that, I don't have that ability, and really going the opposite direction. That's what low self-awareness and low self-regulation, we can actually undermine our own strengths. And so we have to be aware of those emotions. We have to be able to regulate them in a way that doesn't hold us back from advancement in our organizations. And lastly, when we're low in that self-regulation EQ score, it does increase burnout and stress. Those are statistics that I started this podcast with. Harvard Business Review has done a survey of individuals and really looked at how impulsive, emotions in a negative way impact stress levels, fatigue, and burnout actually increases when we cannot regulate those emotions. So it's super important to understand our emotions and be able to regulate them in very healthy, productive ways so that we're not burning out. Mindfulness is a huge aspect of regulating emotions, having that mind-body connection. You've heard that spoken about. It's all over social media. There's so much information out there about being present with what you're feeling and being able to really think about it rationally as well. And so many times our bodies are communicating something to us, and our minds cannot catch up with what we're feeling, because remember, we feel before we think. And so have you heard of the H.A.L.T Method? H-A-L-T. And those letters stand for something. H stands for hungry. Are you hungry? Is that what your body is just needing in that moment? In the afternoon, do you get that kind of crash of energy levels? And maybe you start saying things or doing things out of that place of just hunger. Listening to our bodies. Sometimes when we're hungry, we just need a little snack to actually be more productive and more engaging in a healthy way. So when your body's feeling hungry, we're feeling discomfort. But if we're at work, we may internalize, am I doing something poorly on my job? Is my performance suffering? What just happened? We may overthink something that just happened, a conversation, when all we really need is to go get a snack and to help kind of regulate that. So knowing why you're uncomfortable in the moment, is it that you're tired? Is it that you're angry? Is it that you just need some food to help regulate that, can really be a great tool in learning how to regulate emotion. That's H. A, anger. And we've all heard hangry, right? I think we can combine hunger and anger as well, but maybe we're just feeling angry. Maybe we're just feeling frustration. And so being able to journal even some of these emotions, that's a huge part of self-awareness, but can impact us in self-regulation. Being able to understand, what am I feeling? Am I just hungry? Am I angry? What's causing that anger? What's causing that inside of me? Can I be mindful of that and regulate that emotion? L, lonely. You know, humans are built for connection. We need each other. We need to feel valued and seen and heard, even on our teams at work. And we can feel lonely. I know I work with so many teams that are still in either a hybrid situation or completely alone, working remotely. And so loneliness is a real thing. If you're feeling lonely, being able to communicate that to your team member can be huge. And you understanding what your body is communicating to your mind. And then T, tired. So many of us are feeling exhausted. Stress is real. Burnout is real. Maybe we need a nap. Honestly, maybe we need to take some time off and rest. It is important. It's so important to be able to listen to our bodies. So remember that H.A.L.T method. Think about when you're feeling different feelings. Is it just that you're hungry? Maybe you're angry. Maybe you're feeling lonely. Maybe you're feeling tired. Jot those down. Kind of go through that mental exercise when you're feeling a feeling in your body. And try to help your mind catch up with that so that you can start regulating some of those disruptive emotions and really be able to make good decisions so that you're more productive and more collaborative in the workplace. So often our brains misread our cues that our body is sending it. And so we've got to help retrain our brain and understand where that pain point is coming from. And so, our brains, whether we were to cut our finger or have a conflict on our teams, pain is pain. And sometimes our brain doesn't understand the difference. So we've got to help through kind of that awareness piece, our brains catch up with what's physiologically going on in our bodies. And so this H.A.L.T method and other tools and methods that are out there, this is just one of many ways to become more self-aware and more understanding of how to regulate emotions. And all of this can be super impactful, not only for you as an individual, but for you as a team to be able to make better decisions, communicate more in a healthy, productive way, and step into those high performance areas. I hope you've learned something today. Join me next week because we're going to talk about social awareness. That's the third piece of emotional intelligence. If you enjoyed this episode and would like more information on emotional intelligence, behavioral styles, or communication, I'd love for you to click here to watch more episodes. And we'd also love for you to click here to subscribe so you're notified each week when we post more content.